there's an infant vaccine program in Australia, and the government recommends that you do X, Y, Z. And I think that we did the first set up to 8 weeks, and the impact on our first daughter was so strong, and my wife's intuition was so strong. She's like, I'm never doing that again unless I find out as much as I can about these things. And we actually haven't given any to any of our children since. So it was quite a big change for us, and a big moment where it's like, actually, we're going to say no, this doesn't make sense for us. And it's caused us problems in a number of areas because they make it difficult for you. You know, none other than the fact that, like, the no jab, no play rule. So you can't get into publicly funded childcare without doing what the government suggests. But a big part of that was finding out about the homeoprophylaxis program that Dr. Isaac created. And this actually plays in really nicely to how you explain why homeopathy works, which is, of course, there are diseases out there that you do not want your child getting, and they are a real risk. But we were able to use homeopathics and give a homeoprophylaxis program, as it's described, for kids to protect against some of the most dangerous things. Now, ironically, we can't go to the childcare system and be like, look, here's our homeopathic program we've done. We're just as well protected. We're comfortable with that as parents. They're like, no, can do. But teach us about what homeoprophylaxis is and why those programs have been effective for people. As you described, we're helping the body work with the body, and we can still get the benefits of protection without some of the, I mean, to be honest, very questionable side effects of what might be in some of those vaccines.
Dr. Isaac Golden, he is an Australian homeopath, PhD doctor. He got his PhD in homeoprophylaxis, and he actually had a vaccine-damaged child. And at that time, he, of course, looked into everything and started researching. And he was already a homeopath at that time, or maybe not quite a homeopath, but and so he started to look into, you know, what can we do with homeopathy? Actually, Samuel Hahnemann had already spoken about using homeopathy prophylactically in the 1800s when there was scarlet fever outbreak epidemic, actually. And he found that there was a remedy that was very useful for the patients, for the people that were getting scarlet fever, that was belladonna. And so he was giving that remedy to a lot of people and they were recovering well. And he thought, again, a download from wherever, what if I give this remedy to people before they actually get the illness? Can we protect them? And so he rolled that out almost like a research study during an epidemic by giving people belladonna, because at the time there was nothing that anyone was able to do. And the statistics on the success of doing that were so significant. And so, you know, fast forward 200 years later or whatever, and Isaac Golden having this situation as well with a vaccine-damaged child, not wanting to vaccinate his children but wanting them to be protected, decided to also do a research study and did his PhD. He's been collecting data on this for 40 years. But basically it's for the main illnesses that we know can cause, you know, that can be very serious if they were to be contracted. The diseases in his main program are meningococcal, pneumococcal, Haemophilus influenza B, tetanus, and whooping cough. So what the program does is provide the remedies to children in a series of dosages and things to help protect them against. Now, Dr. Isaac, as I mentioned, he's got 40 years of data on working like this with children, and he has found that the homeoprophylactic remedies are 85 to 95% effective in preventing the disease or preventing serious cases of any of these diseases. Which is incredibly impressive. The thing with homeoprophylaxis, it's not a vaccination as such. It is about reducing the body's susceptibility to that disease. So it gives the body the message, Vaccination, inoculation is getting the immune system to mount a response and develop antibodies to a disease. Whereas homeoprophylaxis is about getting the body to go, oh, I know that disease. We don't have to show you all the symptoms. I've got it. I know what I'm doing here. That's what the vital force does with that. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes when children have the homeoprophylactic remedy, they may have a slight reaction, which could be a slight immune reaction. It generally means they might have a susceptibility to that illness. But they recover and their immune system's fine. The thing about it as well is that we're not all susceptible. COVID went around and not everyone got it. Most people got it, but some people didn't get it. And those people that didn't get it, they're not susceptible to it for whatever reason. Some people got it 8 times, other people got it once. It's all about susceptibility. So we all have different susceptibilities, and also homeoprophylaxis works on those susceptibilities. So it's about reducing, if there is a susceptibility, it reduces that susceptibility to that illness. Isaac has also since then been invited to different countries. I think it was it would have been probably the early 2000s. He was invited to go to Cuba because they started using homeopathy. They had the embargo and they couldn't get all the vaccines there. So actually they make vaccines within the country, but they also were using homeopathy. And so they did a population-based trial, not particularly intentional, but basically they knew that they had a really severe season coming up where they were going to be susceptible to leptospirosis, which is a bacterial infection, which happens during the tornado. What are they called? The hurricane season in Cuba. And so they kind of they broke up the country and gave one whole area the homeoprophylaxis, the homeopathic remedy, and other area got the vaccine because they only had a small quantity of the vaccine. So, but statistically in that there were no other controls other than it was by region. But statistically, the region that had the homeoprophylactic remedy, it was so significant that you could not deny that this was like, wow, this is so much more effective than the vaccine was.
Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, that kind of research was taken to some major medical journals that just didn't really want to know about it.
No. Well, and that's where you have to. It's not even speculation at this point, but like the incentive model that's behind all of this stuff is just wild. Yeah. And that's not, we don't need to dig into that on the podcast now per se, but it's certainly been such an eye-opening few years as to how government and the pharmaceutical industry work together to get what they want. And like the idea that a vaccine, for example, is actually not liable. So the vaccine manufacturers, if you get in trouble, it's the government that has to bail them out. And it's written in law. And there's all of these different areas you can find information about why people like investing in vaccines, because they can't get any cost, essentially. The downside risk is very small. I guess I couldn't encourage people more to go out there and ask these kind of questions and have the kind of conversations like we're having right now, because the results are fantastic. And this very specific use case, right? Oh my God, you're not vaccinating your children. Like people really find that very confronting. It's like, okay, well, yes. And we've got a number of reasons for doing that. And is it not our right as people, as individuals, to choose what goes into our body? This idea that like public health policy is more important than individual choice, very, very dangerous area to be pushing agendas. We spent, I think, $200 on a box of remedies that 3 kids later we're still using a couple years down the line. It's like, and it's thus far, touch wood, worked. And it gives us something to be like, no, we haven't just not done it because we're, you can call us conspiracy theorists or whatever you want. It's actually, we've been proactive about it and found a different solution that we preferred. And that's hard to argue with, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think, going back to the vaccines, You have to do what you're comfortable with. But one of the problems is that you can't have a conversation with many people in the Western medical world about it. It's just you have to do it. And I work extensively with autism, with neuroimmune disorders, PANS, PANDAS, all of that kind of thing. And I can't tell you the amount of parents who have said to me, I know my child changed after that vaccine.
Wow.
And the repercussions of that on that family
It's just awful,
is
isn't it?
beyond. When there's complete denial, and I will not say that vaccines cause autism, because I've also seen autistic children that are not vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
But our children are bombarded with a whole lot of toxins even before they enter the world. And then that can be the cherry on the top. You know, it's a factor. It's a contributing factor. And because we just roll it out just as a blanket rule for everybody, we have this situation where we have a growing rate of not only neuroimmune disorders, but autoimmune disorders, you know, in children. Like it's just, it's crazy, really. And then you're not allowed to speak about it, which is also crazy. Like, can we just have the conversation? Because I have a great deal of respect for Western medicine when it's used appropriately. I absolutely do. We need it. We need all of these ways of healing. Yet, you know, it's so interesting that one has to try to dominate and suppress and squash the others. And when it's not particularly, you know, if I wasn't helping people, I wouldn't continue to be a homeopath. You know, I wouldn't do it. I'd get bored of that because, you know, you can't do something without any results, right? And just take people's money. Well, some people maybe can, but I can't. And I think that, you know, this is an effective form of medicine that we can do so much. And also, like with children, the more we use homeopathy, the more we strengthen their vital force. The more, as adults, we use homeopathic medicine, the more we strengthen the vital force. Any remedy that you give at any time is strengthening the vital force. I know that for sure. I've had a medical doctor from India who has a homeopathic hospital in India, who I went to a seminar of his in New York 10 years ago or something, and he was saying, you know, he said the statistics of the cases of illness in children that are vaccinated compared to unvaccinated, and it's significant. Like it's extraordinarily different. You know, the kids that are always getting these colds and coughs, and this is a normal part of being a child, to get a cold and a cough and a fever and those things. We need a child to go through that. We need their immune system to kind of go through things. But when we have children who are constantly in that kind of chronically ill state where they're constantly, you know, getting sick and their immune system can't quite recover, and then they might go and get more antibiotics because you know, it all layers up, or steroids in many cases, then their immune systems are being suppressed. Their vital force is being suppressed. And so I think the more that you can use a well-rounded approach, use Western medicine when it's needed, and then look at the other options for supporting your child through a cold and flu and fever and things like that, because there's many.
Well, and to very happily promote something that you've helped us with, we have a small wooden box downstairs with about, I don't know, 20, 25 different remedies in, and a little booklet. And it's like, runny nose, take this one. Irritable from a bee sting, take this one. And it goes with us everywhere. And the first thing we'll do if we see any kind of symptoms popping up, it's like remedies. Like my son is 6 months old and he's now teething at nighttime. And, you know, Lauren, have you given him the remedy? You know, exhausted at like 4 a.m. It's like, no, I can't find it. Where's the Belladonna? You know, or whatever it is. And that's an incredible tool. So that's a great product that people can jump on your website and go and find.